The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
All right, Lockup faithful, thank you for joining us for another interview. It's been a while since we've done these, but we are getting right back into the thick of things. And with me, I have, hailing from Portland, Oregon, we have the Rat King. King, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. I'm about 48 hours removed from the biggest match of my life. So I'm both shitting bricks, but also resting comfortably.
Well, that is good to hear. Tell us about this match that you just came out of.
Well, the match I just came out of was a tag team match for my tag team championship against Wade Hess, the Pacific Northwest heavyweight champion, and Just Exciting, the ex-Pacific Northwest heavyweight champion. And the stipulation was we put our tag team titles on the line, and if we won, which we did, I picked the stipulation and have a rematch for the heavyweight championship against that dirty piece of shit Wade Hess. So I chose Last Man Standing.
Fantastic. That always brutal match. That is coming up July 10th. I saw Last Man Standing.
Sunday.
Yes. So tell us.
Get one last look at my beautiful face before it's all fucked up, because it's going to get there.
Well, we are hoping it's going to be you coming back someday as the heavyweight champion. Hopefully you win that this Sunday. More importantly, we're hoping for a good match. Last Man Standing, very brutal, usually. How are you preparing for the match?
I'm drinking heavily, and I'm trying to keep myself in as negative a mind state as possible, because that's when I do my best work.
Well, the drinking heavy, we can drink to that.
Absolutely. Still waiting on my drink.
Oh, no.
Bartender!
So this will be airing a couple days after the match, so hopefully we can announce you as the new heavyweight champion.
Well, if that gets you the rub, that'd be cool.
Yes. That is for those who are going to try to check out the match, it is for the Pacific Northwest Blue Collar Wrestling promotion. Tell us if there's anybody in the area watching, how can they come check that out? Well, I guess they can't check that out now. Will they be able to catch it after?
Thankfully, I'm in front of a computer so I can get all the particulars. Because I know some people will be very upset at me if I don't plug the correct address. Thankfully, I just shared it. Pacific Northwest Blue Collar Wrestling comes at you every Sunday night from the Colony in North Portland at 7525 North Richmond Avenue, Portland, Oregon. Doors kick open at 5:30 p.m. and the action starts at 6 o'clock. General admission and ringside, first come, first serve, $15. Kids under 12, $10. Kids under 5 on laps for free.
All
right. Sell you the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge of it.
That's right.
Oh, God, I'm going to be sick.
But yes, $15 for a ticket, that's great.
Yeah, I might bleed all over the front row.
Bring your ponchos. If you're planning on sitting the first couple rows, it's like, for those of us who aren't kids, it's like an old Gallagher comedy show.
Yeah,
bring your ponchos, bring your tarps.
Or a concert without the alien penises.
Yes.
Usually.
So now you are part of a faction called the Hellbound group. So tell us about that. Tell us who's in there with you.
Hellbound was the brainchild of myself and my longtime manager, Al Tubbs. And it initially was just going to be a tag team between me and Gregor Petrov. But Booker, who should not be named, didn't like that idea and decided to throw me in there with another longtime friend of mine, Draven Vargas, who anybody who knows shit about the Northwest knows that Draven Vargas is like one of the most respected and well-loved tag team wrestlers in the entire Northwest. So I wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. We got that over as fuck, and then we kind of had the pull to get Petrov in there as well. And Petrov is... I'm trying to think of someone to liken to. It's like if you put Eddie Kingston into the body of a much shorter individual and made him twice as crazy. Petrov is a manslayer. And a whole part of me tagging with him was I just really did not want to have to wrestle him.
So are we talking like the love child of, say, Eddie Kingston and Crash Holly, maybe?
I wouldn't say Crash Holly. I'd say Matt Bourne. Not Doink Matt Bourne. I mean drunken, going to actually kill you Matt Bourne that the Northwest knew very well.
All right, fantastic. We've actually got Draven coming on here in a couple of weeks, so that'll be 2/3 of the Hellbound. We'll have to get the third one on at some point.
Yeah, the alcohol content of this podcast is going to be astronomical then.
That's okay. That is more than okay. So you also talked about another show you did recently, Fest, Wrestling and Live Music. Tell us about this and tell us what it's like to have wrestling and a concert all together.
God damn, Fest. So I have not wrestled for Hood Slam, but I've wrestled for their developmental show, Stoner U. And before COVID, they had student show nights every fourth Thursday, and they would give the Hood Slam venue to Stoner U. So I've kind of wrestled Hood Slam light. And in all honesty, Fest was the closest I've gotten to working a Hood Slam show in the Northwest. Holy fuck, that crowd. Like, it was just a bunch of drunk-ass punks. Half of them had no idea what the fuck pro wrestling was, but they brought it. And I got it as close to Hood Slam as possible. Like, the people were standing like 4 or 5 feet back. I was like, fuck that. Everybody get up here, put your hands on the apron. A few motherfuckers jumped into the ring, and I was like, nah, not that far, James. But, yeah, oh my god. So Fest was put on. It was going to be just like a backyard punk house show. And then our friend Evan, mostly Petrov's friend Evan, he has a promotion called Anarcho Pro Wrestling, and that was their first show ever. So we got in on the ground floor of that, and they're like, hey, we don't know what you're going to pay you, but you want to work this punk show? And I was like, punk show? Wrestling? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to talk out of class, but the PO wasn't bad either. So... as long as they run shows, I will do every show that motherfucker runs, because that was the time of my life.
I mean, how can you beat a festival with live music and live pro wrestling?
MDC headlined that show. And I was just like, why the fuck are they here?
I like to think, hopefully, maybe wrestling fans.
I don't think so, honestly. I mean, maybe. I got to talk to their, hype man, because, MDC is like a 30 or 40-year-old band, so I figured any incredibly crazy old man there was part of MDC, and he was like the Flava Flav of punk rock. He was just rattling shit off. I mean, I'm standing there like, I don't want to be rude, but this is not the kind of energy I need before I have a match. I'm already buzzing.
So out of curiosity, let's say you're booking the musical talent for a show, you got an unlimited budget. What's the reaction you're booking for a musical show to accompany a wrestling?
3 acts. And this is just a wrestling show in general?
You got wrestling and you got the music scene together. So you're booking your own kind of Fest.
And this is, I could keep it to even the Portland area, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Headless Pez, one of the bands that played Fest, they were the co-headliner, and 2 of their members caught a stage dive that I sent out of the ring. So I can't leave those boys out. A personal local favorite, Quasi, they would be the They'd be the semi, I guess, as if you're using wrestling terms. Not much of a booker as far as music. And then I'm not sure if Poison Idea is still even a band, but I'd get whatever the fuck Jerry A is doing and have him do whatever he's doing. Or, Frank Black from the Pixies lives in Corvallis. So if he wasn't touring, I'd maybe have him do some shit. So that's my cheat code top 4.
That's great. That's a great lineup. So we've talked about what you've done recently. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning. What influenced you to get into wrestling? Who were some of your, early favorites? Who did you enjoy watching?
Oh, man. So my love of wrestling, I'm going to be out myself here and say I didn't really get into wrestling until like 2007.
Okay.
And I'm 28 years old, so, do the math. I was born in 1994. I missed out on a lot of the fucking golden age of wrestling. The first Raw I ever saw was the one where John Cena main evented against Kevin Federline. So, yeah, I had to go back to find some good shit. So, I had a friend named Jacob who I met in like computer science class or some shit. And he was this unassuming, acne-riddled kid who wore like sweatpants and only John Cena shirts. And I was all into music, and he had no idea what the fuck music even was about. And he was all into wrestling. And, we kind of... It took a while for us to really hit it off, but I taught him a lot about, metal and punk and grunge. And he was like, you ever heard of this guy, Mick Foley? And, my idea of pro wrestling back then was a bunch of either jacked up huge guys or ab twink dudes in Speedos grappling, and I wasn't interested in that, to each their own. But it just wasn't my scene. But then I saw this incredibly ugly, fat, out of shape dude, like, bringing a barbed wire bat across Randy Orton's face, and I was like, hang on now. This could be something that I like. So, yeah, Foley was an early favorite. Obviously, around that time, Undertaker was still doing his thing, arguably better than he'd ever done it, because, people underplay how fucking awesome Undertaker was, in the late 2000s on SmackDown. Benoit?
Undertaker is definitely one of the ones who knew how to reinvent himself just enough to keep his character fresh.
Yeah, kind of a dickhead of a human being, it turns out, but hell of a gimmick. And, I just mentioned Benoit, so, it's not like I'm measuring moral standing against wrestling. I dug Benoit, and then, the whole thing with him happened, very early into me being a wrestling fan. It was my first wrestling tragedy, actually, because, I missed Guerrero. And Benoit was the one where I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. It's like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, that was... I still have, a vivid memory of that. Because I slept in, and I just caught Raw, because I wanted to see, what was going on with Vince's limo exploding and all that shit. And then I just ended up watching 3 hours of fucking Benoit matches, and I was like, wow, it sucks he's dead, because he had some great fucking matches.
Yeah, he definitely knew his way around the ring. But yeah, let's go back to Foley. I think he's one of the early ones you can look at and say, you don't have to look like somebody who works out 3 hours a day and do this kind of stuff and be taken seriously.
Oh, no, and I was 5'11" and 125 pounds back then. So I was like every other asshole was like, I can put on some sweatpants and be a fucking pro wrestler. Fuck yeah. So I backyard wrestled for 6.5 years.
And it turns out Mick Foley's one of the greatest guys to ever come out of the professional wrestling world.
Absolutely. One of the guys that I've met multiple times as a fan and later on as a wrestler, and great dude.
Anybody that's watching, if you have a chance to catch his comedy shows, fantastic.
His podcast is awesome too. Not that I'm trying to compete, throw stones here. I'm just saying, Mick Foley's podcast, if you've read all of his books and shit, still a lot of stuff you haven't heard, because, you can only hear the stories from the books so many times.
Right. if you love hearing the background and the history, Mick Foley's one to check out.
Yeah, Regal too. That's it wasn't like an early favorite. I hated Regal when I was younger. Holy fuck, Regal rules.
He's one of the ones, he knew how to be a heel. He knew how to do it right because you hated him.
Yeah, the sheer fact that I hated him so bad when I was young. Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a shit taste in wrestlers when I was younger. There was just, whoever's on WWE, I had no idea what the fuck the indies were. And then, as I turned into a teenager and become a smarky piece of shit, I loved, Sick Nick Mondo, Claudio Castagnoli, back when he had hair. Kingston, obviously. I think maybe in the CZW. Was that where he was?
He started CZW and Shikara.
Yeah. I didn't watch Chikara, but I did fuck with CZW heavy because they had those ridiculous death matches. The first few cases of death is fuck, and shit Zandig fucking taping his tendon up post-match and then wrestling another match. I used to get all my friends together who weren't even wrestling fans. And I'm like, hey, here's Tournament of Death. Let's sit around, get high, and fucking watch these dudes try to kill each other for 4 hours.
It's sure, okay.
Yeah, they weren't into wrestling, but they were into violence, so it was an easy sell.
So let's talk about the gimmick a little bit here. You run the gimmick, kind of spills over into real life as well, from what I've noticed, where I've done my little bit of research.
I appreciate that. Most people don't.
The satanic gimmick. And,
yep.
Early on, a lot of people say, no, wrong impression of it. But, you sit
100%.
down, you read, the tenets of, here's how you should live your life according to our religion or our way of life. You realize this is actually pretty good at how you should live your life.
Yeah, so Satanism is kind of weird right now because, there are 2 majorly recognized satanic churches.
Mm-hmm.
One that is more popular these days and one that's been around since the 60s. And I gravitate towards the one that has been around longer. For a multitude of reasons I don't need to get into on a wrestling podcast, but yes, I am a legitimate LaVeyan Satanist. You can tell by the big-ass Baphomet tattoo I have on my back that doesn't rub off. That's on me for life. I've been a Satanist ever since my 2nd year in the business.
Okay.
And it's helped me a lot personally. Through a lot of mental health challenges, a lot of the shit the business has put me through, where I'm sure if you talk to anybody about the mental strain that the business puts on you, it is immense. And, I've had my share of hard times like everybody else has, and Satanism was my way of, kind of reframing things. And, I will go to bat for Satanism all day, and especially the fact that, somehow I'm a Satanist wrestler who wrestles primarily as a babyface. And you tell most bookers that I am a Satanist devil guy babyface, they'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I've got crowds of fucking kids in the front row, under 8 years old, throwing up the devil horns, yelling, "Hail Hellbound." So it works. I never sell myself as that. I try to do Hellbound as a heel, and they're like, "Nah, dude, you're too entertaining and you're too funny." And I'm like, "Fuck me, all right."
Yeah, like any wrestler that's made it will tell you, do whatever you got to do to get over, and that's how you start. So
yeah, I don't want to shit on anybody who does a theatrical devil gimmick and doesn't get into that shit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think I'm sensitive or Satanists are sensitive about all the devil stuff, and man, it's all at work. We're atheists who dress up funny and like to drink a lot and hang out and hate everybody else. It's just, it is what it is. It's not a totally serious thing.
Now, I did notice also, you got a Twitch channel. Mm-hmm. I've seen some video games stuff posted. What kind of video games are you really into?
I really like JRPGs.
Okay.
The more obscure, the better. Obviously, as somebody who's super into the occult, the Shin Megami Tensei series is going to be my favorite forever, which spawned into the Persona series, which is very popular now, but the original SMT series gets dark and biblical and freaky, and I fucking love it. I actually streamed the entire series from like the first one on the NES all the way to the second to most recent one on the 3DS.
Nice.
There's one that's out on the Switch now, which I 100%ed myself because, you know, like it came out when wrestling was happening again, and I had my outlet for attention by then. So I was, you know, I tried my streaming thing for like a whole year, and lo and behold, streaming a really obscure Japanese role-playing game from the 90s and 2000s didn't net me a whole lot of viewers. I mean, I also played JoJo Eyes of Heaven a whole bunch, and that got me a lot of viewers, but it's a very shallow, very short game, so...
Right. It's a matter of finding a mix and balance between a game that someone's going to want to look for to watch somebody play and not playing the one that everybody's playing. Then...
Yeah, and I think if I would have just, like, played Minecraft or Fortnite every day for a crowd of 10-year-olds, I probably would have drank myself to death over quarantine. So,
yeah.
Just not the place for me, I guess.
They got another big show coming up, the State Line Showdown coming up July 16th.
Oh yeah, I know nothing about that. I know it's in Post Falls, Idaho. Been there once. So a show canceled on us at the last minute up in Marysville, Washington. And we had already kind of gotten the soft invite to support All Pro Wrestling. But it was a conflict of that date, so we weren't going to go. They canceled on us at 7:30 a.m., about the time we were about to head out to Marysville. And I'm not a driver, so I take public transit or trains and stuff to usually a tag team partner or some central location's house to get to bookings out of town or out of state. So I'm already up there with Petrov, and we're sitting there pissed off, like, man, hit up the booker for SAPW and see if he has spots. And Petrov's like, man, that's such a long fucking drive. I'm not burying Petrov here. It's just, you know, he's the one who's driving. So
right.
he was like, I don't want to fucking drive 8 hours. And I'm like, yeah, fair. And then we're in the group chat with Draven. Draven's like, hey, have you hit up the guy from SAPW? Like, as he says that. And Petrov just sighs, picks up his phone, and is like, hey, this place canceled. And he's like, okay, get up here. And then all of a sudden we tacked 4.5 hours on our transit for that day, but we ended up going up to Post Falls to do this fucking biker rally. We wrestled 2 matches each. Fucking nobody gave a fuck, honestly. Like, you know, there's a lot of people there, but there's a lot of people who have no idea what they're fucking watching. So we got into festival mode, though. You can see my Facebook cover photo that I ran a bump and feed with Frisbee. So
I did see that.
That alone was worth the trip. But yeah, we made enough of an impression that we've been invited back. So we're wrestling like 3 minutes from where we had the biker rally at some biker bar. So, I mean, as long as we don't get shot for being queer-friendly Satanists, then I do take pride, though, that I wrestled in front of a whole bunch of bikers in one of the most racist states in the Northwest, wearing a trans flag armband on my arm, and I still got over it. Wrestled a kid who's kind of a pronounced bigot, by the way. He's never going to watch this, so it doesn't matter. But it was a kid who I've gotten in many a Facebook spat with over a multitude of things, including trans visibility and trans validity and, you know, all that shit. I grabbed him by the hand in the middle of June, stood next to him, and I was like, Pride Month! And then clotheslined him.
Oh, I'm sure he was not too appreciative.
Oh, fuck that kid anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, odds are he's not going to be watching our show. Very pro-LGBT, and stuff like that. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do not give a fuck if any bigots do not like me. I make it a point that if you're going to make anybody in this crowd feel uncomfortable, I'm going to bottle you. So,
I know I did see you have worked with some big names in the business. You worked with Clark Connors and you worked with Brian Hebner.
Clark Connors is a big name now. What the fuck is my life? Yeah, I worked with Clark. I worked with, oh man, I'm just going to drop all the names now, I guess. Brian Hebner, D'Lo Brown, Gangrel. Not in the ring, mind you.
Right.
You know, we've been on shows together. Wes Briscoe. Pike, shut the fuck up. Sorry, that's my deaf dog. He gets upset if anybody else is eating a treat. Fuck. Who else is a big name now? Let me just do a sounding board question. Do you know who Ricky Gibson is?
Yes, Rock and Roll Express.
No. That's Robert Gibson.
Raptor.
No, I'm talking about Ricky Gibson, Northwest, Midnight Heat.
Okay, yes, I do know him.
Well, all right. Well, I was trained somewhat by him and tagged with him for like 4 years. I was hoping you'd say no so I could say fuck that guy, but it is what it is. Yeah.
I know of him because of one of the guys on our podcast does train there, so.
Oh, yeah, Brad was trained by him. That makes sense. Since it was just me trying to be petty.
I mean, no, don't know him at all.
Yeah, we do not get on anymore. But that's this isn't a drama podcast, and I'm not interested in spreading that fucking bad stink. So, man, who else? Oh, Kevin Cross, Killer Cross.
Nice.
I wrestled house shows with him in Salem back when he was just a guy, and even back then, I looked at him and was like, "Why the fuck are you not everywhere?"
Lo and behold.
And yeah, it didn't take him long.
So out of everybody you've met, that's made it or has been in the business a long time, who's giving you the best advice?
Shit, that's a really good question.
You don't have to name the name, or just what the advice was that really worked out for you.
Man, there's a lot, and it's hard to recall on the spot. There's one mentor I had. I don't mind naming him. He's Richard Sincere.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody who's not very well known because he can kind of make an ass of himself sometimes. But there's a thing he always said when I said I had some grandiose plan for doing some shit I wanted to do. And he'd always say, well, the doing is in the doing. And, he's not always the best giver of advice. Sometimes he's a bitter old piece of shit. But I always went back to that. It's like, I can say I'm going to do all this shit, but the doing is in the doing, so I better get my fucking ass out there and actually do it. Like, hey, man, I got this plan for a gimmick where I'm going to fucking wear a Baphomet head, I'm going to have a fucking big tattoo on my back and shit, and I'm going to, do all this crazy shit. It's like, well, the doing's in the doing, my guy. And I'm like, here we are. It worked out.
All right. So we at Hellbound, we're big lovers, of the furry animals, all animals in general. So I came across this and see if you want to introduce your little scaly friend here.
That is Louis Cypher. And there's an interesting story behind him, actually. So there's this little Southern Oregon town called Sweet Home. It's like the closest that Oregon can get to a sundown town anymore. I mean, there's a lot of them up here, unfortunately, but it's like the kind of town where even somebody like me with my complexion, but being kind of alternative, feels not comfortable. But my girlfriend's dad is a total piece of shit, and he lives up there. And he's got this big acre where he has 2 or 3 trailers, fifth wheels, bigger ones. And he texted my girlfriend one day, and he was like, a bearded dragon just walked into my property. And she was like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's like a bearded dragon. The dogs were following it around, so I picked it up. I put it in a container. And something about my girlfriend you should probably know is that we have 3 dogs just at my place. She used to have 6 ferrets, and as ferrets do as time went on. We've been together 10 years, so we've been through like 9 ferrets. So, like, she's a lover of all animals. She won't kill a spider. She'll murder a fly. Don't let that bite her, but, shit like that. If there's an animal in need, she's going to fucking help it out. So we're sitting there, just about a year ago today, actually, is like, I think the anniversary of me getting him was from that picture. So it was very recent. And I was like, I don't want him. I don't want the fucking lizard. I don't want to take care of him. She's like, well, he's low maintenance. He kind of just does his own thing. And I'm like, I really don't want another fucking pet. Like, I'm gone all the time. And she's like, just look at him. And I looked at him and I was like, I'll take the fucking lizard. And now I love the little motherfucker. So
that's how it goes.
I named him Lewis Cipher because, oh man, I can't remember what SMT game it was. I think it's like SMT2 maybe, where Lucifer shows up and he's so bad at disguising himself. He calls himself Lewis Cipher. So, I had to give him a devil name at least.
Yeah.
And it works. Another one of my big influences is Joe Bob Briggs from Monster Vision, The Last Drive-In, and the director's Lizard Ernie is a really big part of their show. So, like, it was kind of just a weird synchronicity that I found a bearded dragon that looks just like Ernie, and now he's a part of my world now.
Mm-hmm. All right, as we get ready to wrap things up here, there's a little game we like to play. I call it the electric chair. So it's going to be 6 rapid-fire questions, mixture of wrestling, some non-wrestling.
Oh, man, rapid-fire questions to me, as you can probably tell, are not very rapid-fire because I never shut the fuck up, but I'll try.
So you're just going to, first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so question 1. The best pizza topping?
I'm a pepperoni guy.
Nothing wrong with
Bland
that?
As fuck.
What would be a dream arena to wrestle in?
Fuck. There's a couple.
Name them all. Go for it.
Hammerstein, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
ECW Mark forever. MSG, just because, fucking obviously. Literally any dingy little punk club or backyard that I can get my ass into, I'll do it. I'd say Holocene, but I already did it. Holocene's cool. Ash Street Saloon, if it was still around. These are like local Portland places. God, there's a good answer that I'm not reaching for just because between this and like before my pre-show shots, I'm at like 4 now. So let's just move on to the next one. If I come up with it, I'll just scream it abruptly and scare the fuck out of you.
As soon as we get off air, you're like, oh, son of a bitch, this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so question 3. Would you wrestle Ric Flair in his last match pay-per-view?
That's a lot of fucking pressure. But, if I got a fucking message request from Rick motherfucking Flair and is like, hey, man, you want to do my match with me? And I know his match because it's the same match he's had with everybody for the last 40 fucking years.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say, do I have to Cash App you something? And then I'd say, get me a plane ticket. It's like, of course. What the fuck?
Riding and styling.
Yeah, I mean, if he dies in the ring with me, that's still infamy. What the fuck ever, man.
Yeah, you'd be the guy he died in the ring with.
Yeah, I'll take it.
What's the one video game you could play forever?
Halo 2. Online.
Yes. If you were given $10,000 to go on an all-expense-paid vacation, where are you going?
Tokyo, Japan.
Not a bad answer.
Zero question.
And the last one, what is the weirdest weapon you've seen used in a wrestling match?
A dildo. And it was used on me.
Oh, story time?
Oh, yeah. So I was it's called a War Games match at BCW, but it's only one ring, and it's a cage match that just has a bunch of weapons. And we didn't have William Regal introducing it, so is it really War Games? Or is it just War Games? But I was wrestling a guy who no longer is in the business, and I will not put over by naming him. Because fuck that guy. Anybody who knows anything about the Northwest probably knows who I'm talking about. But he had this dildo in his hand that our friend Tommy Celsius, for whatever reason, has a bag of dildos that he calls the bag of dicks in his car at all times. To each his own. So this wrestler / booker at the time grabs me by the throat with the dildo in his hand like Michael motherfucking Myers. And being the worker that I am, being incredibly giving, I'm like, no! And no, turns like, because, like, I swear to God, the dildo is like, it might have even been a strap-on, but it's got some length and some girth to it. And that motherfucker went all the way down my throat and all the way out in the span of like 2 seconds. And I'm like, oh my fucking God. So, yeah. Yeah, that is definitely that and like a wet floor sign. And that's way less exciting. I got my heat back on him, though, because he went under in that match to my team. But he still had to cut his obligatory, I'm going to talk for 5 minutes to kill the entire crowd promo after the match. Call everybody a bitch and say that he's the best. Typical people who should not be booking but are booking bullshit. And I was standing there, covered in blood, because, I'm a little gig monkey. And I underhand threw this dildo, and it arced in the air like 6 times, bounced off his forehead and hit the mic, and then hit the ground. I've got a clip of it somewhere. It's buried deep in my Facebook. But I popped so fucking hard. The whole crowd exploded, and I'm just like, fuck your shit, guy.
I mean, that's a 1 in a million shot.
Dude, it really was. It was like the fucking, it was like blowing up the Death Star. It really was just perfect.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. That was, what better way to end an interview?
Leaving it with the dildo sniper story. Absolutely.
So where can people find more information on you?
Well, for the next 2 weeks, as long as I remember to renew it for the next year, I have theratking.com, which has all my socials on it.
Mm-hmm.
But chances are I'll forget to renew that, and that domain will be dead in 2 weeks. So posterity's reasons, is you got my name right here. Just put an @ on that, and you'll get everywhere. Facebook, Instagram. The Twitter is the only Rat King, but that is sporadically used at best because Twitter is a fucking cesspool. But yeah, Instagram and Facebook are the best ways to keep up with me.
Okay. Yeah, and we will link everything in the video description as well. So stay tuned for more.
YouTube.com/Hellbound as well for maybe. YouTube only lets you have a custom URL if you have so many things, so you could just search like. Fuck the YouTube. I've got links to it. Anyway, the Rat King. That's where all my shit is.
Search him out. Go to his shows if you're in the Pacific Northwest area. If not, take a plane ride out there.
I don't have a pro wrestling tees. You could find it. Please don't buy anything off of it because that place is a scam. I will send you a shirt directly if you like my shirt design. So just, that's on the website. Hit that shit up. I'm just too lazy to close my pro wrestling tees account. So don't give them any money on my expense, please.
Absolutely not. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, The Rat King. We hope everybody has a great rest of their night.